In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello and welcome back to The Paddock and the Pavilion after our 2-week break as we lead into Christmas. I hope you all have been keeping safe and well in these difficult and challenging times. Don't forget, I would love to hear from more of our listeners from home and abroad, so please let us know what you think of the show by giving us a rating and a review on all the usual outlets. This week's guest is Dale Benkenstein, the South African leader who played and coached South Africa at international level and went on to become a legend at Durham, where he won the county championship on 3 occasions. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Hello Dale, welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Morning, Steve.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show, and I must also thank a mutual friend of ours, Ivan Pistorius, for setting up this episode. Ivan played for my own club, Marchtown, back in 1994, and I understand you've known him for a long time.
Yeah, Ivan was at the same school as me. He was a bit older than me, my brother's age, so I've known Ivan pretty much all my life, and I'm actually coaching his son at the moment, so the relationship is still pretty strong.
Yeah, this is his son, Christopher.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Well, this morning we're going to talk about your long cricket career, the trophies you've won, your international career, your time at Durham, and your recent role as a South African cricket coach. But first, what has it been like in South Africa during a pandemic, and how has it affected your role as a cricket coach?
Yeah, it has been, I'm sure, for everyone, a pretty strange year. Cricket obviously stopped completely, or everything stopped completely over we had quite a tough lockdown for about a month to 6 weeks, and then things eased off, but with the uncertainties and the social distancing and everything that has now become part of life, sport has taken a bit of a knock. So I coach at a school predominantly. I have my own academy that I run, and we've sort of stopped and started. We were allowed to train. We're almost up to normal training, schedules, but we haven't been able to play cricket, getting other schools onto our campus, and obviously traveling. Parents watching, and that is seen as just asking for trouble with the pandemic. So all in all, it's been pretty frustrating, because to just practice and not have any matches goes against pretty much what sport's all about. So at least we've been able to keep ticking over, but not having the matches has been quite hard to feel like you're in a season. It just hasn't felt the same.
Right. So any sign of matches yet then, or?
So we have end of year now, not like England where everything finishes in September. We go our sort of end of years now, beginning of December. So schools are all on holiday, and then everyone's hoping that start the new year, which will be middle of Jan, we'll have normal fixtures. There may not be parents may not be able to watch, but everyone's hoping, and the feeling is that we're going to have normal fixtures starting in the new year. But I'm worried that you guys have experienced that the pandemic doesn't want to go away, so we are still sort of subject to whatever happens in our country.
Well, the best of luck with that. We're still currently on a lockdown here, waiting to hear some news today, actually. Yes. But let's go back to your background in cricket. Now, reading up, your dad played first-class cricket, and both your twin older brothers played first class cricket, you must have played a lot of competitive games in the garden.
Yeah, I think that's where it all starts. We didn't have a lot of private coaching, and that seems to be the norm these days. There was a lot of tennis ball, tape ball, cricket in the driveway, in the gardens, wherever we lived, on holidays. So I was lucky I was the youngest, so I think I got the raw deal a lot of the time, and it was pretty tough for me. And I think that, in a way, helped me, progress maybe a bit further than my brothers and that.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique family when four members have all played first class cricket. So when did you know you wanted to be a cricketer?
That's quite funny. I loved rugby. I was born in Zimbabwe, but lived most of my life in South Africa. Rugby was, I enjoyed both sports, but I really loved rugby. I wanted to play for the Springboks. Also, I love my cricket. But I would say, as soon as we got to the final years of my school career, I realized that I started to get more opportunities in cricket, and we were allowed back in international sport 1992. So there was the World Cup in Australia, the famous Reindorf, the 22 runs of one ball against England.
Oh, we won't mention that.
But we were all watching at school, and I think so the lure towards cricket started to become slightly greater than rugby. And then we went I got picked for an under-19 tour to the West Indies in that same year. And I think there we traveled with the national team. Kepler Wessels was the coach. They played the historic first test against the West Indies and Barbados. And I would say that's when I was only 17 at the time. And I then realized, this is really what I want to do. And the opportunities were sort of in front of me then. So that would have been the watershed sort of moment.
Well, that ties in with my next sort of bit of information here. At age 18, you made your debut for Natal in a one-day semi-final against Eastern Province, a very strong Natal side, including Andrew Hudson, Pat Simcox, a young Sean Pollock, and two legends in Clive Rice and Malcolm Marshall. That must have been a very big game to start your sort of top-level career.
Yeah, it was. The opposition was pretty strong too.
Yeah, I noticed that Kepler Wessels got 100, and Eldine Baptiste got you out.
That's right. And there was Dave Richardson, Callaghan. I mean, they had a powerhouse side, so it was a bit of a baptism of fire. I think I was running on adrenaline and nerves all mixed into one. So I didn't do very well in that match, but it was the start of pretty enjoyable and successful career with the Dolphins of Natal.
And Malcolm Marshall became your captain. We all know, shortly afterwards, in this country what a fantastic bowler he was for Hampshire. What was he like as a captain?
Well, I was incredibly fortunate, as you mentioned. It was, I had Malcolm Marshall, I had Clive Rice, two of probably the greatest all-rounders or cricket figures, and one from a South African point of view, and the other one just worldwide. And to have them, I was a captain. I'd been captain of most teams, and to have them be close to you and listen to and guide you at that age, I think it really was the reason why I was able to stay a captain at first class sort of level for a long time. I think I learned very early from probably the greatest cricket minds in the game at the time.
You actually succeeded Malcolm as captain of Natal at the age of 22, and you did the double, winning the one-day competition and the four-day competition on two occasions when you were captain.
Yeah, that was a nice start, and pretty, I would say, lucky and from my point of view as having just taken over the captaincy, because I think that was the rewards and a product of all the work that Malcolm, Graham Ford, Clive Rice, Peter Rawson, there was a lot of, real stalwarts of the game that had brought us youngsters through over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's shown us how to be professionals, and it set up a production line of players to make sure that we had a strong squad. So Malcolm retired, Clive Rice retired, and I then took over the captaincy with still a very strong squad, and we ended up just managing to get over the line and win 2 trophies. But as I said, I was lucky in that sense that we had all the hard work had almost been done before that. So a great way to start, but I can't take it definitely wasn't because of my captaincy.
But you soon got sort of international recognition, playing for South Africa under 24s, and you also captained the South Africa A side in 1997, and then in 1998 you made your one-day international debut against England.
Yeah.
I won't mention the result.
Yeah, we obviously won.
England got a good score. England got 281. This was in the first Champions Trophy in Bangladesh.
Yeah, it was my first tour, my first matches for South Africa, and my first Champions Trophy. People always say that South Africa's never won a big tournament. Well, we won that one, so there's one that we did win. And it was an interesting tournament because it was a purely knockout tournament. So if you lost one game, you got on the plane and went home. I don't think they've had another one like that since. So we managed to win. I think we only played 4 games, and one of them was the final. So we played West Indies, I think, in the final. And yeah, that was a massive moment for me to make your debut. I think for anyone, it's something that you, as a cricketer, you always dream of and you work towards, and everything is towards playing for your country. And I think that, you can never take that away. And the fact that we ended up going on and winning that tournament was even better. I thought, geez, this international cricket's quite easy.
Yeah, you beat the West Indies in the final by 4 wickets.
Yeah.
And you got 27. And shortly after that, and I had to look this up, because there was like a gap in your appearances, but you were selected for the World Cup in 1999 in England.
Yes.
And they obviously didn't have any sort of rotation policy in 1999, because, I went to a lot of those games in that particular World Cup myself. I saw South Africa play at Northampton when they played Sri Lanka, but you were one of the 15 members of the squad, but you didn't play in the tournament. That must have been very frustrating.
Yeah, you look back now, and at the time you're very happy to be there, but you want to contribute, and it was disappointing. I understand at the time, I think everyone, they were using white Dukes balls, and everyone's top order was really battling, and the sort of the lower order in most teams, the all-rounders were what was definitely getting us through. Klusener was having the sort of tournament of his life. And so the feeling, being a top order or being more of a batting all-rounder, the feeling was against the lower or the weaker teams, your Kenyas, and that they wanted to give the top order confidence to go into the next game. It wasn't a case of resting them. So those opportunities didn't come around. It was very frustrating. There was one game, it was the game where Herschel dropped that ball where it was debatable whether he caught it or not, against Australia, where if we had won that, we would have played, I think, Zim in the semi-finals and not Australia again. That game, Jacques Callis got injured, and I would have thought that would have been an opportunity for me. We were playing at Headingley as well, which is seamers wicket, and I bowled pretty ordinary seamers, but I did bowl a bit of medium pace with a little bit of guile, and obviously could bat. So missing that game, I think I realised after that I wasn't going to ever play in the World Cup. And I think they went with Nicky Boyer, which was left arm spinner. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, those were the decisions at the time. And I think throughout my whole career, there wasn't a lot of faith given to me where I had a long run. I would always play the back end of a tournament, or if someone got injured, you sort of got a chance on 2 or 3 knocks. So that on one hand. On the other hand, when I did play, I probably didn't make the most of those opportunities. But it is always nice to know that you've got a little bit more than 1 or 2 matches to play. So that was quite frustrating from a national point of view.
Yeah, 23 matches is more than 1 or 2, but South Africa did have a very, very strong batting side in those days. You must have been disappointed never to have played a test match.
Yeah, I think my, when I say 1 or 2 as well, it was like almost 1 or 2, and then then I'd have then you'd get left out, and then you'd play 1 or 2 again in 5 months' time or whatever. So it was never like an extended run of 6 or 7 games in a row. And I really think that I probably got picked a bit early. I felt when I went to England, so I was 29. So I got picked at 25, 26, 24. And I reckon at 29, probably the cricket, or definitely the best cricket of my career, and for the next 5 or 6 years. And that's where I think Australia were good in that sense, where your young Matthew Haydens and there are a few examples where they came in early and then they didn't really shoot the lights out, and then they went back and scored tons of runs in county cricket and state cricket, and then they got reselected again. We sort of, once you've had a go and you haven't made it, they just sort of brush you off. So from a test point of view, I can understand it at the time when I was in the national side, but I would have, I thought I could have made a contribution. If they had picked me again, I would say I was in a better place to play test cricket at about 29 onwards.
Then in 2005, you moved to Durham and came to England. Why Durham?
I played a lot of club cricket in England, and I had a small or young family, and I had been left out again from South Africa, and I think the whole the quota system started coming in, and I just felt that the way South Africa works is they're looking for the new young up and coming cricketer. So I thought, I'm still playing great cricket. I love playing cricket in England, so let me try and apply my trade over there. I went for a few trials. I'd spoken to Leicestershire, and they had sort of mentioned that they were interested. And then the agent I was working for said, no, Durham they've changed their chairman. They've got a decent coach. They've got some good young local players, and they're looking to lift their game a bit. So they've got a 5-year policy and he thought it's not a bad place to go, and because they really are, they're moving in the right direction. So I went for a trial game, having played 100 first-class games. I played a second-team game for Durham. Jeff Cook was there, who was a stalwart at Durham Northants. And I played against Yorkshire. I made 100 in the game. It got rained off, I think, the last day, and they offered me a contract. So it's pretty much how it worked. We weren't sure at the time whether I was still able to play cricket in South Africa. There was all this Colpack issue. We then finally worked out that I was eligible for a British passport. So I got that in 2 or 3 weeks. And then everyone thinks I played as a Colpack, but I actually was a local. I played with a British passport, yeah.
Well, you made an immediate impact there. I mean, they got promotion from Division 2 in the first year in 2005. And then in 2006, you became captain. And in 2007, runners-up in the county championship. And you won the Friends Providence at Lords. This is the old NatWest Gillette Cup C&G Trophy. And then you were county champions in 2008.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I can tell you that. We just gelled as a team. We started off with Martin Moxon as our coach, who I think had put in a lot of work with a lot of youngsters at Durham. And then they blended those youngsters with some really good pros. Made some brilliant signings with Mike Hussey, and then some not such big names, but that had a big impact on the club. Guys like Callum Thorpe, Gareth Breeze, and obviously myself included in that sort of group. We had this, and then you had your young guys that are Durham players that were now pushing for England. So your Harmisons and Collingwoods and Plunketts and Onions, and so there was just the ingredients was all there with the experience, with the youth, an experienced coach and Jeff that sort of put it all together, and a club I think that was ambitious. We had a chairman that wanted to win, and like I said, we played. We really enjoyed the game. We enjoyed each other's company. Being successful, I think, helps with that as well. And it was just a great couple of years, probably, the most enjoyable cricket years that I had. We had a similar environment in Durban as well, so with the Dolphins. So, I would say I was lucky. I played all my cricket with a lot of people that enjoyed it, had fun, and that were actually very good cricketers. So, it was a great time.
We were champions again in 2009 and 2013, and you were also a linchpin of the side. You got 1,000 runs 5 times. How different was it playing for Durham in the county championship from playing for Natal and the Dolphins in South Africa?
The difference was definitely volume. So we only played 10 games in South Africa. You played 10 one-day games. T20 cricket was only just coming in. So the cricket that you played in South Africa was ferocious in a way. It was played very hard, and you had a lot of time to prepare. So it wasn't as strenuous from a match point of view, but it was pretty tough cricket, and a very good standard. County cricket was just you're either playing or traveling or having a bit of a net nearly every day of the week. So it was more of a it was volume of cricket that took its toll on you mentally. County cricket for me was just it was the physically and mentally the volume of cricket would take its toll as opposed to South Africa. South Africa was very aggressive. So it's a lot more aggressive and a lot more in your face, and the training was very hard and all of that stuff because there was enough time to do that, to prepare for each game. Your pre-season was almost really important for county cricket, and that was managing yourself to make sure September you still had some petrol in the tank to still play in finals and win big games, and so it was just there's just a lot more cricket. And the standard was, I think, that first division, we were at the beginning of the 2 divisions, and by the end, the first division I felt was incredibly good standard of cricket in England as well.
Really stopped playing because of a shoulder injury to go into coaching, or do you think you'd have carried on?
I had a year or 2 left, and I think it was a bit of that, and I was at the end of the day, it was either 1 year or 2 more years left. I'd given it a pretty long run. I think I was 39, and having played since 18, I did feel I'd given it, everything that I had. I probably had a year or so left, which I suppose every cricketer thinks they do. And just the opportunity of coaching came up. So I had a pretty disappointing time with Durham as well. I was sort of due I was due for a benefit year There was on the table a coaching opportunity when I finished, and Jeff Cook actually got ill. He fell down. He had a heart attack, and he was the director of cricket. We didn't have a director of cricket, so he was director of cricket. Basically, ran it with the senior players and obviously the chairman and the CEO. When he he had a heart attack, and it looked like he actually, it was really bad and that he wouldn't make it. Some of the other senior players sort of stepped in and changed things around, and things changed, and I really didn't like that. So it was a combination of, I was at the end of my career 100%. Durham had given an amazing time to be involved with them and to do what I did. So I then had an opportunity to go to Hampshire as a coach, and I didn't want to anymore due to those couple of conversations and decisions that were made. And I thought, well, to get a coaching opportunity at a club like Hampshire straight from playing doesn't often happen. You normally have to do your apprenticeships at an academy or whatever. So that the combination of that and coming to the end of my career and not agreeing with a few things that happened at Durham really made me end my career.
Well, you had two and a half seasons at Hampshire. You got them to two T20 finals day, got them promotion. But I wanted to move forward to your role as the batting coach at the South African cricket team. That must be a high pressure job, facing the media. I've seen a few clips on the laptop here, a little bit different from speaking to me when you've been bowled out by Sri Lanka for 73, I think it was, and also you must have been there in the Sandpaper Gate series as well.
Yeah, I loved my time. Again, there was a Durham connection, so if it wasn't for Otis Gibson, I wouldn't have been there. We had obviously played together and had known each other through the West Indies, through South African cricket, and through Durham. And that was a real privilege, and I really appreciated him wanting me to be there as part of his team. And we had, when you go into international cricket, that it's going to be tough. Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, the pressures are just so much bigger. The microscope is on everything that is on you, everything that you do, and you have to take responsibility for that, whether you do well or generally when you don't do well. It wasn't a surprise. It was just disappointing at times when you put in a lot of work and then you don't get the rewards as a team. But that's sport.
Just to clear a few things up, you did have test victories at home against India, Pakistan, and Australia. So it wasn't all bad when you were a batting coach.
No.
But as a batting coach, what do you think of the quota system in South Africa?
Well, I think it's not just as a batting coach. Look, it's a hell of a sensitive. We all think that sport should be played and represented on merit. Our country hasn't had a straightforward history, so the quota system, I think, has definitely played a positive role in getting cricket noticed in a bigger, a larger group of people in South Africa. We've seen even now player in the whole country, one of the best players in the world is a black African, South African, in KG Rabada. So, there's definitely merit. I think there's also frustration. I think for players that perform and then don't get picked because we have to fulfill a quota, I think that's very hard to deal with. And it does create issues amongst players, amongst coaching staff. But I think we handled it pretty well. I think Otis, specifically in my role when we were over there, I think the whole management handled our situation incredibly well. There's huge respect in that team that I was involved with. There's huge respect for each other, and I thought we had some incredibly good players. From a specifically batting point of view, I don't know the reasons why. I'm not part of the whole development program, but we are short on not talented, but on exceptional players. So now you have to try and balance a team, and we've got some very good fast bowlers. We've got Temba Bavuma, who I think is an international class batsman, and there's a few youngsters that are coming through. Enough, if Temba gets injured, then a bowler has to now fall out because we're trying to now get our numbers right. So it messes up the balance of a team. And I think when you're playing international cricket, where everyone knows the margins are so small, I do think at times it is a slight disadvantage to us. But I do understand that it's trying to rectify a far bigger picture than maybe just that one test match that we're playing.
Well, long term, hopefully you'll reap the benefits there. Now, your final assignment, though, was the World Cup in 2019, where South Africa came 7th and winning 3 games. Reflecting back, how did you think the team performed in that competition?
No, we were poor. It sort of went back to, I would say, our preparation, and I think a lot of the frustrations that we had as a management group are coming out in the press now as to who we were dealing with, and from a management point of view, a lot of teams. I mean, Otis and I both played in England. We knew England very well. A lot of the players had played in England, and we would have liked to have been in England. 2 weeks before warm-up matches and that started, we were told there's not enough money. Can't prepare there. We had a mandate to get our players then out of the RPL 2 weeks before we were leaving for England, so that they would be fresh and part of our preparation. That mandate or that piece of paper never got to the RPL, so we had 3 or 4 of our key players, including the captain, that were playing RPL the night before we got together as a team for like 2 days preparation before we flew. So our build up to the World Cup was, I think, you still believe you're going to win, and you still, you have to try and believe that you got the players. But when you look back, and the feelings that you did have, or my feelings before, was that we weren't prepared properly. Our strength has always been our fast bowlers. Heinrich Nakia got injured. Rabada had just come off 6 weeks of the RPL. Lungi and Gidi was coming back from an injury, and that real spearhead that we had wasn't there. As well as our batting didn't fire, and I just think when you're in a tournament like that, as I said, the margins are tiny, and you slightly off your game and other teams are playing above themselves or at their level, the gap starts to become massive. So it was a disappointing World Cup. You got to take responsibility for that. Another issue which was very disappointing for me was AB de Villiers not being in our team. Probably one of the best batters in the world at the time. You would want him to be in your setup. So there were a lot of things that could have been better, but at the bottom line was the 14, 15 guys that went there. We didn't perform, and it was disappointing from a results point of view, but from a coaching point of view, unbelievable. My first World Cup as being part of a coaching unit, incredibly tough. Tough watching us sides lose to teams that you should beat. Seeing guys really just, they were trying. I don't think there was a lack of effort, but we just weren't there, and it was hell of a tough. The one great thing about it is there was no issues in the team. You never saw one. Yes, we played badly. We were getting hammered in the press, but the captain never ran away. There was no fighting. There was no issues with senior players. The team was actually, got through a hell of a tough period incredibly well, and I was pretty proud of that. Even though it's not a consolation, people want to see results in that, but you always, as a coach, you try. Your one job is to create a really healthy and strong environment, and I think, although we didn't have the skills and we didn't play on the field, I still think that environment we were able to keep it really strong through probably one of the toughest times I've ever had in sport, over that World Cup.
Well, that's obviously a very important ingredient in a team. And even though you would say you came seventh, winning only 3 games, looking at the table even now, a couple of close games, you narrowly lost to New Zealand. You could have won 5 games, and 5 games got one team into the semi-final, and actually that team were in the final. So there's fine margins again in all sport. Now, what does the future hold for Dale Benkenstein?
I coach at a school, Hilton College, and I love my job here. I've got 4 children, so school at the moment is a pretty high on the agenda in our family. So I have a well-balanced life at the moment. I did have a 3-month contract to coach at Lancashire, but obviously with COVID that fell away, and that's the sort of balance that I would like. The current job that I've got, I really enjoy, but to do some contract sort of work in England or somewhere else around the world for 2 or 3 months during our winter period, it excites me. It keeps me relevant with professional cricket, and that's sort of my short-term future plans at the moment.
You don't fancy a franchise job in the IPL then, earning loads of money?
No, I think anyone would. It fits into my schedule as well, but those are for, it seems to be quite a close-knit family. If you've played in the IPL, I never played in the IPL. I played in the ICL, which was just before that. And I'm not a big name. I'm not a big international, and that is the biggest stage in world cricket at the moment, I feel. And so they're looking for those sort of figures. I would love to be involved there, as I said, most coaches would. And if I do get the opportunity, I would obviously jump at it. Yeah.
Well, you're certainly very well known in county circles here. One of the previous guests I had on the programme, Bill Hearn, he's just written a fabulous book about football's black pioneers, and he's a Durham member. And when I emailed him the other day to say that Dale was going to be on the Paddock and the Pavilion, he called you a legend. So I thought I've got to get his name in here. So, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for being on the Paddock and the Pavilion. And look, I'm now looking forward to watching the T20 and one-day international series against South Africa in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's nice to reminisce again. It'll be nice to see some cricket on South African soil again as well.
Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Cheers.
I would like to give special thanks to Margot Webley for her PR work and voiceovers on the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Pad and Pav.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's game day at Raising Cane's. If you want to order like a champ, it's the action off the field you need to focus on. The only play you're running is chicken. So what combo are you picking? Make it a perfect season. We've got tailgates of hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers and cane sauce, and jugs of freshly made tea and lemonade. All available to order online or on our app. Touchdown! This season is about to be unbeatable. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love.